Wouldn't it be great if emotional pain worked like a physical wound? That you could see it, and there would be clear direction on how you can heal it, what kind of treatments to use, what kind of bombs, put a band-aid on it, forget about it, and it'll heal on its own. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. Hi, I'm Scarlet Classic, and welcome to Classic Advice, a mental health podcast offering guidance for resilient souls, anchoring calm amid the chaos. I think a lot of us spend many years trying not to think about our emotional pain that we're carrying around with us and the experiences that really hurt us. We distract ourselves, we stay busy, or we compartmentalize, and we convince ourselves that if we ignore it, that it will go away. But that's not how it works when it comes to emotional pain. If we ignore it, it doesn't go away. It might stay buried for a while, but eventually it will come back up and it will force us to feel it. There's that myth of getting over it just by ignoring it. When something emotionally painful happens, sometimes the pain is too much that if we feel it in that moment when we're in survival mode, we wouldn't be able to carry on with our day. So we push it down, and that's fair. That is, sometimes we need to do that. I've done that lots, but then we forget about it, or we try to forget about it, and because we ignored it for that long, we figured we'll just ignore it for longer because we don't want to think about it because it hurts to think about it. And it hurts to talk about it. And we don't want to feel it. Who would? So we bury it and we keep it buried. We bury it so deeply that we convince ourselves that it won't affect us, or it won't be able to affect us because it's buried so deep. But in my experience, buried emotions, they don't disappear. Just because, we hide it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Like when the clouds cover the blue sky, it doesn't mean that the blue sky isn't there or that the stars aren't there. They're still there. We just can't see them because the clouds are covering them. Or the sun is up and, the light is too much. We can't see the stars, but they're still there. And when these emotions decide to resurface later, they can come up as anxiety or panic attacks or irritability or emotional numbness, and not even being able to feel the good things either, like happiness and joy and the good ones. Contentment. What kind of emotional pain have you been burying and not letting yourself feel it? What kind of things have you experienced that you figure if you ignore or you bury it, that it will eventually, decay and disappear? But it's not going to decay. It's going to stay down there until we dig down and bring that chest back up and open it and deal with what is in there. And it's not gold. It's not pretty. It's painful. For years, I didn't understand why my therapist kept asking me over and over again to tell her the stories of things that happened to me. And honestly, I got so fed up with it. I hated it. I stopped going to that therapist because that's all she wanted to do. That's all she wanted to talk about. And I didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't making me feel any better. So I stopped going for a while. And then I wasn't getting any better, so I decided, well, I'll try a different therapist. because I didn't want to revisit my past. I didn't want to relive it, and I could not understand why she kept doing that. And then, I saw someone else and he clicked better, and we didn't talk so much about my past as much, but more about my emotions and the theory behind it. And so sometimes, if you're going to therapy and you feel like it's not clicking, maybe just try somebody else. But now I realize why that other therapist was getting me to tell those stories over and over again. It wasn't the story. She didn't want to hear it. She was trying to get me to feel. And I was so good at compartmentalizing, and I had that chest of emotions associated with those events buried so incredibly deep that I could talk about it and just was completely numb. The stories weren't the point. The point, she was attempting to get me to feel so that I could move on from that experience. Because until we let ourselves really feel the emotions associated to the painful things that happen to us, we can't really move on from it. We need to get angry. We need to cry. We need to be sad for a little while. That is processing. That is dealing with it. Ignoring it is not dealing with it. Letting yourself feel is. And dissociation can look from the outside like healing, because we can pretend, we can fake it till we make it and pretend that we're all fine. And for a long time, that's what I did. I could describe the painful things that happened to me with no tears, no anger, no sadness, just nothing. Completely dissociated, completely compartmentalized, and void of emotion. But that didn't mean that I had healed. I thought it did, but that did not mean that I had healed. That just meant that I buried it so deep. I compartmentalized my pain so effectively that I could just talk about it with no feeling, no emotion. That's not processing. That's surviving. And sometimes survival is necessary, like I said, but healing eventually asks us to do something differently. If we really want to heal, if we really want to move on from it. This dissociation is like a protective response when we are overwhelmed with painful experiences. And it helps us function in that day or that hour when emotions feel way too intense to process in that moment. And that's not the problem. It protects us during those traumatic experiences, but it can prevent us from fully processing it afterwards. So if we need to do it for a little while so that we can survive it, then like I said, that's okay. It's when we get stuck there and we don't revisit it down the road. Is it possible that you have become disconnected from emotions that you haven't processed? Is there anything you can think of in your past that you are determined to not think about and not feel the emotions connected with those experiences? I had a really big breakthrough when I just allowed myself to feel and get angry. The grief, the sadness, fear. The emotions that I had spent years avoiding, as uncomfortable as it was, that's where the healing started. I hated every moment of it. It was painful. It hurt. It wasn't easy. It was very, very difficult. But those emotions needed to be felt, not permanently avoided. This healing happens when we stop avoiding and we call a spade and we let ourselves feel and be honest with ourselves. Have you spent years avoiding your emotional pain? Don't think that you're weak. in many cases, that avoidance is just you surviving. So be kind to yourself if you feel called out by this episode. Be kind to yourself. That was you surviving. And if you're not in that painful experience, if you're in a safe place now, then you can allow yourself to breathe, and you can allow yourself to heal and feel. When we are in a safe place and we're ready to heal, that asks something different than what survival does. And healing asks us to feel things. And it's going to take time. And there's going to be waves of good days and bad days. And when we have the bad days, let yourself have a down day. And don't feel guilty about taking some time for yourself to just feel and be sad. And that's okay. And let that wave of emotion pass over you. And then once it's passed, it's amazing how much better we'll feel after. And I'm not talking about depression, because when I started really feeling a lot of things, I also was dealing with depression. So as long as you're not getting stuck in a really, really depressive state, a lot of this hit me all at once, and that was part of the reason why I got depression. There was multiple different factors that contributed to it, I think, but I kept getting hit with so many waves that I got depressed. And don't feel like you need to do it all alone. Having your support system there, having your friends there, or a friend, or a therapist to help walk you through this process, because it's not easy. And we need to be ready to enter our warrior, phase and really face up to these things. And the goal isn't to relive the past forever. The goal is to finally just feel the past so it no longer has the power over our present. So we don't need to heal from running from the pain. We heal from walking through it and facing it. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Advice, guidance for resilient souls. May you stay anchored in what steadies you, rise resilient through what challenges you, and carry calm into whatever comes next. Take care. Love you.